What's up, everybody? Welcome into week 6 of DFS. This is the Adjusted Line Play Report presented by Zilla Fantasy Elite. I am your host, Todd Hoffman. You can find Zilla Fantasy Elite over on Twitter at Zilla Fantasy. You can find myself on Twitter at Todzilla1337. If you're watching this on YouTube, please consider subscribing. If you're listening to this on Podbean, go ahead and head over to YouTube when you get the chance. Subscribe to Zilla Fantasy Elite. You can watch the Adjusted Line Play Report there on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, certainly give Zilla Fantasy Elite a follow on Podbean. That is where the audio can be found if you are not inclined to watching the videos. So keep that in mind. If you're on YouTube, head over to Podbean. It is a podcast app, syncs with a bunch of other ones. Type in Zilla Fantasy Elite and give them a follow. I will be uploading the audio to Podbean every week. And then if you're listening to this on Podbean, go over to YouTube, consider subscribing there and getting the latest and greatest in DFS advice and dynasty advice and game clips from all of the hot players for that week. So those are all the socials, everybody. Let's get into this week 6 slate. We're going to kick it off, as always, with the top plays or the top Vegas totals and then go on from there. So the number one game total for this week is Kansas City at Washington, and it's going to be a little bit different. We got 4 teams on bye, so let's just go over those. We'll scroll to the bottom here for those on YouTube. We call it Game 15 and Game 16, but Atlanta, New Orleans, New York Jets, and San Francisco 49ers all on bye this week. We have one game in London, which is Miami and Jacksonville. They will be early. Set your lineups appropriately. And then currently, this is Thursday night. We have Thursday night football going on right now. Last I saw, 2 touchdowns again from Tom Brady in the first half. This dude's just ridiculous. So it's only a 10-game main slate this week, which makes it a little bit more interesting. With that being said, Kansas City at Washington is the highest on the slate at 54.5 points. We have Kansas City as 7-point road favorites against Washington. As always, we're going to start with the away team here, which is Kansas City. And we're going to start on offense. Their offensive pass protection is number 2 overall. And they're going against Washington, which is number 24, the defensive pass rush. This is a green-red matchup, folks, for those on Podbean or listening to the audio. Number 2, Kansas City pass protection. Number 24, Washington pass rush. For whatever reason, Washington just hasn't been getting after the quarterback. Their defense has actually been pretty atrocious, and they are getting lit up by the wide receivers every single week. Their secondary is really bad. It was bad going into the season, and now we just see that their defensive line isn't playing as well as it was expected to at the beginning of the season. This is a smash spot for Patrick Mahomes. You're going to want him in a lot of lineups. Obviously, he's going to be popular, but a 54.5 point total. They are the highest on the slate by 3 points over the next closest. This is a green-red matchup. Expect Kansas City to have plenty of time. I know Tyreek Hill is dealing with a quad injury, but they should have plenty of time to pass the ball. Expect this to be a monstrous Tyreek Hill week if he plays. If he happens to be out, I do expect Kelsey to get peppered with targets, as the rest of the receiving options there aren't necessarily that great. You know, you have Robinson, you have Mecole Hardman, you got the new guy there, Josh Gordon, looking svelte and yummy, according to the tweets that I heard. Comes in at 7% body fat. Byron Pringle, those are the types of guys that you're going to be looking at if Tyreek Hill is injured. But yeah, if Tyreek Hill is out and doesn't play, I would expect Kelsey to get peppered with targets, considering his target competition is those previously mentioned guys: Byron Pringle, Robinson, Josh Gordon, Mecole Hardman, guys that aren't necessarily target hogs. They're not target magnets. So expect Kelsey to have a monster game if Tyreek Hill is not there. If Tyreek Hill is there, there's going to be plenty of time for Kansas City to throw the ball, and I think Tyreek Hill is in a smash spot and could be one of those slate-breaking guys this week, so keep that in mind. On the run blocking side for Kansas City's offense, they are 10. That is the top 10. That's a green matchup, but Washington's actually been pretty good against the run. They are also 10th. When there's a wash on offense, we just kind of expect the normal people to score points here. Darrell Williams will be starting there in Kansas City and probably getting the majority of the snaps. They still do have Jerick McKinnon, who's going to eat into a lot of that work. But just be aware, like, Darrell Williams isn't like super athletic. People are already complaining about Clyde Edwards-Helaire not being that productive fantasy-wise. So I'm not a super fan of Darrell Williams in this particular matchup. I think Kansas City is just going to pass the ball all over Washington, and it's going to be an air attack from Kansas City. They don't really pass the ball to the running backs there, but there is a narrative that you can say Kansas City is going to score a lot of points. They are the highest. They're a 31-point projection basically this week. That many touchdowns, or expecting them 4 touchdowns and a field goal, right? So maybe Darrell Williams gets in on 2 of those. You can certainly stick him into a lineup, just not somebody that I'm super excited for. Kansas City pass attack, that's who I'm getting. Mahomes is going to be in a lot of my lineups. There are very cheap options at running back this week, which I think allows you to get Mahomes and Hill, if Hill plays, into a lot of your lineups. So let's go over to the Washington side. They are the home team here with a 24-point implied total. On offense, we have Washington's pass protection, number 5. They are top 5 in offensive pass protection for the adjusted line play report. That is excellent. Guess what? Kansas City, number 26. They have a horrendous defense. Number 26 against the defensive, or for their defensive pass rush. They are not getting after the quarterback. What this means is Tyler Heinicke is in play. He's also going to be in a lot of my DFS lineups. But Tyler Heinicke in play. I think he's going to have a lot of time to pass the ball. It's going to be a Terry McLaurin week. We have a lot of injuries over there in the Washington wide receiver core. I don't think Curtis Samuel is going to play. I think he's going back on IR with his groin issue. We have the rookie Diami Brown dealing with the knee issue. I also don't think he's going to play. And we have their tight end, Logan Thomas, is out. So that's Ricky Seals-Jones over there at tight end if you're interested in him. He's probably in line for a bunch of targets as a dart throw tight end in a game environment like this with the ability to have some time to pass the ball. I think he is certainly in play as a punt play tight end this week. But the guys that I'm most interested in, McLaurin obviously has the highest upside of any Washington receiver on this squad for this particular week. But the one that I think might be winning you $1 million at the end of the week is Deandre Carter. He got 8 targets last week with all these other guys going down with injuries. He seems to be active in the kickoff and punt return game. So the guy's obviously got some dynamism or dynamic ability to his game that they trust him with those open field kind of plays. So this guy probably has some open field ability and some athleticism that, you know, others might not have if they're not involved in that the special teams aspect. Again, this is a number 5 versus a number 26 on pass protection. Expect Kansas City to have to not generate a whole lot of pressure on Washington. Heineke's in play. I'm looking for McLaurin to have a monster week. I'm looking for DeAndre Carter to be one of those cheap dart throw wide receivers. That's not necessarily a dart throw. I think he's going to see, 6 to 10 targets in this game. And then you have Ricky Seals-Jones backing up Logan Thomas there because of the Logan Thomas injury. He essentially stepped in and got all the snaps that Logan Thomas was getting. Exactly the same target or snap share, like in the 90-95% snap share there for Ricky Seals-Jones. He's definitely in play as well as a punt for a punt play tight end. If you're going punt play tight end, you could just do that as a one-off. If you're running Taylor Heinicke out there, you probably want to get Ricky Seals-Jones in there if you're not getting Travis Kelce for this particular matchup. Again, folks, this is number one matchup this week. Kansas City at Washington, 54.5-point total with Kansas City as 7-point favorites. Let's get on to game number 2 for this particular slate. Again, only 10 games, so we're 20% of the way, or 10% done. Going to be 20% done after this matchup, which is Los Angeles Chargers at Baltimore. And we have a 51.5-point Vegas total, as I had mentioned before. Baltimore, the home team here, they are 2.5-point home favorites against the Chargers. Might want to take the upset for this. Let's get that upset alert. If we're going to have Baltimore at 2.5-point favorites, I do like the Chargers. Not only to at least cover this line, but probably beat Baltimore. Baltimore has been kind of scraping by the edge of their teeth. They got beat by Las Vegas in a close matchup. That one went into overtime. They beat Kansas City. I don't know if that one went into overtime, but it was very close at the very end. They barely beat Detroit, so they've been kind of the cardiac kids over there in Baltimore. I think the Chargers are just a good squad, so watch out for that particular upset there. I might be, if I was a betting man, I would take the plus money there on the Chargers. Anyway, the Chargers are the away team with a 24.5-point implied total. Let's look at their offense. Offensive pass protection, number 7 against Baltimore's number 13 pass rush. Slight favor there for the Chargers, but it is somewhat of a wash. And on the offensive run blocking, the Chargers are number 7, so they're number 7 pass protection. They are number 7 in the offensive run blocking as well. In Baltimore, though, number 6 in the adjusted line yards on defense against the run. That's kind of a wash. Number 7 for the Chargers in the run blocking. Number 6 for Baltimore in the adjusted line yards. Again, when that happens, you just expect the regular people that normally score fantasy points for them to score fantasy points. That's Eckler. Wouldn't go anywhere else on the run game for the Chargers. But let's look at that pass protection. Slight favor in for the Chargers here at number 7, with Baltimore more middle of the road at number 13. But it's not that big of a gap. Essentially a wash. You're going to expect the people that you normally would to score fantasy points here. I did hear Baltimore's slot cornerback has been getting torched this entire year, basically. I can't remember the person's name off the top of my head or who the cornerback is there, but this could be one of those Keenan Allen weeks. We've seen Mike Williams blow up. This is the second highest total. Mike Williams might be very popular this week, and a way to get different is to get Keenan Allen in there, especially if that slot corner isn't that good. Keenan Allen, very excellent, plays a lot of his snaps out of the slot, so that is in play there. But for the Chargers, if it's going to be the pass game, it's going to be Jared Cook. It's going to be Mike Williams, and it's going to be Keenan Allen. You could put Herbert in there and stack him with those options. You can always stack him with Eckler. Eckler is an excellent pass catcher. If you think Baltimore might be able to get after the Chargers a little bit, you can always grab Eckler as well, since he does get a lot of those underneath targets if they are there. So nothing too concerning as far as the adjusted line play is suggesting for this particular one. They just might be a little bit more efficient through the air than on the ground against Baltimore. So keep that in mind. On the Baltimore side, we're going to look. They are number 22 in offensive pass protection. The Chargers are number 14 at generating a pass rush. So they probably will be under siege a little bit there in the pass game. When we look at Baltimore, offensive run blocking, 25. That's actually pretty poor. The Chargers, though, number 31 in the adjusted line yards on defense. They're getting ran all over. I expect Baltimore to actually run the ball a ton in this particular game and not necessarily pass it all that often. This might be one of those Lamar Jackson weeks where, okay, they're a 22 versus a 14. He's probably going to get a little bit more pressure than he's used to, which is just going to lead to more Lamar Jackson getting flushed out of the pocket and running. With that being said, his pass catchers pretty much this entire season have just been Mark Andrews and Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown isn't necessarily just the deep threat. We've been seeing some more intermediate routes there. I don't expect Baltimore to have a ton of time to pass it. Maybe 1 or 2 deep shots go to Hollywood, but I would expect more underneath stuff. So if you're looking at Mark Andrews, I don't think that's a horrible play. If you want like a Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, just one stack and then run it back with one of those Chargers receivers or 2 of the Chargers receivers or Eckler. I don't think that's a terrible idea. But Baltimore, I believe, is going to move the ball on the ground a little bit more effectively than what they're used to. So you're looking at Latavius Murray, Tyson Williams, and that's kind of gross. Latavius Murray just looks washed. I'm not exactly sure why they said they're going to give him that sort of volume, but I think it's just because he's a veteran and he kind of knows how to play football, right? So he's not necessarily the most talented at this stage in his career or the most explosive or the highest upside on the field, but he's also not going to give you those negative plays where he misses a blocking assignment or anything like that. So I think that's why it's in there. He obviously could be in play here, but I'm not looking for anyone on Baltimore besides the three guys I listed before, which is Hollywood Brown, Mark Andrews, and Lamar Jackson. I believe Rashad Bateman will be back for this particular game, but they said they're just going to ramp him up over the next few weeks and get Bateman kind of adjusted that way. So it's for being the second highest game total on the slate, there's pieces in here, but I don't know if I'm necessarily looking to game stack a bunch of these into my lineup, especially considering what matchups we saw in the Kansas City-Washington game. I believe I'm going to want a lot of them in my lineups. If they're not my game stack, I'm going to have skinny stacks of that previous game. So that's number 2 game on the slate, folks. Los Angeles Chargers at Baltimore. Let's get on to the number 3 game, which is Dallas at New England. Let's see, that is the game 12 here. So we have a 50.5 point total for Dallas at New England. We have Dallas as 3.5 point road favorites against New England here, and we will start there. Number 13 in offensive pass protection. New England's actually pretty good at getting after the quarterback. They're number 8. Dallas, number 1 in offensive run blocking. New England, number 21. I don't expect Dallas to be nearly as efficient through the air as they are going to be on the ground. I believe this is going to be a Zeke and Pollard week. They do split about 65-35 as far as snaps are concerned. I think this is a smash spot for Zeke this week, and I'm going to have him in a lot of my lineups, I believe, as well, with some Kansas City and Washington people there. But yeah, I think it's going to be more of a run game week for Dallas. It's not that big of a discrepancy in the offensive pass protection. They're probably just not going to have as much time as they're used to, which is probably just going to lead to more tight end targets. So New England, I don't know who they're going to game plan for. Bill Belichick's very good at getting your best player kind of covered. So it might be CeeDee Lamb that they're going to target, say, hey, like CeeDee Lamb's not going to beat us. It's going to be Amari Cooper. It's going to be the tight ends. It's going to be Pollard. It's going to be Zeke catching those passes, and maybe Lamb has kind of a quiet week where those other guys all just get a few more targets. So Dalton Schultz, if you're going to get a tight end, if you're going to run Dak out there, I probably would go with the Dalton Schultz there as my tight end if you're not getting Kelsey from that original matchup. But that's where I'm going to go for Dallas. It's going to be attacking more of the run game than the pass game. If I'm going to do the pass game, it's probably going to be the tight ends there and Cooper, as I think they're going to target Lamb as the person that they're going to want to stop in New England, which they've been pretty good at doing throughout the entire career of Bill Belichick. On the New England side, it gets a little bit interesting here. We have an 18 on offensive pass protection, which is kind of middle of the road, a little bit worse than that, but Dallas is number 29 in the defensive pass rush. So we expect Dallas to probably move the ball on the ground and not be super efficient through the air, but we know that offense is good. So they're probably going to move the ball. They're going to score a few points. And on New England's side, their run blocking is number 29. Dallas is 19. Dallas isn't that good, but that's a pretty big discrepancy there. I don't think New England's going to be able to run the ball on Dallas very well, so they're going to have to move the ball through the air. I expect them to be down and passing more often. I just think they're going to be a little bit more efficient. So this might be one of those Mac Jones weeks. I'm not exactly sure what his price is on the two different sites, but usually get a bigger discount there on DraftKings. So this might be a sneaky, if he is super cheap over on DraftKings, he doesn't really need to score that much in order to get you there in a tournament. So this might be one of those sneaky Mac Jones things where you get him in if their pass game gets 2 or 3 touchdowns, you get Mac Jones in there and pair him with Jacoby Myers. Maybe Jacoby Myers gets his first touchdown in a while. Nelson Aguilar. You have the 2 tight ends there. Hunter Henry had a big week last week. Jonnu Smith has caught touchdowns in the past. But New England is going to have to move the ball via the air, I believe, and I don't think they're going to be under that much pressure, so I think Mac Jones could have a nice week here. I think he could support a few fantasy assets, so if you want to go that route, if you're going to get a Zeke in there, maybe run it back with the Jacoby Myers on the other side. If you're running Mac Jones out there, maybe Jacoby Myers with Hunter Henry or something like that. He's not that mobile of a guy. He's more of a pocket passer, so you're going to want to double stack him most likely. Unless you think Jacoby Myers goes from 0 touchdowns in a few years to having multiple ones in one game. That would make for a nice story anyway. Anyway, that's going to do it for the Dallas and New England game. Again, they are the number 3 on the slate. We are 30% done already because there's only 10 games. Number 4 is Arizona at Cleveland. They are sitting there at a 49.5-point game total, which is not too bad. Cleveland, 3.5-point home favorites against Arizona there. So we're going to start on the Arizona side on offense. The pass protection, number 14. Not too bad. It's middle of the road. Cleveland, though, number 4 in the pass rush on defense. They are getting after the quarterback pretty good. I think the Chargers were able to handle that to an extent. We obviously saw the Cleveland Chargers game shoot out last week. This could certainly do the same, but I don't think Arizona's offensive line can handle that. Cleveland's defense, I think, is going to be in play here. So we have Arizona, number 14, against the number 4 defense for the pass protection versus pass rush. And then Arizona's number 19 in run blocking. Cleveland number 5 in the adjusted line yards against the run. I don't expect Arizona to move the ball very well in this particular game. So just be aware of that. I'm probably not going to have a lot of Arizona people in my lineups. I know James Conner has been hot, scoring just tons of touchdowns. I think that stops this week. Any redraft value that he has is going to evaporate after this matchup. I believe this is more of your Chase Edmonds week. If Arizona's kind of under siege, look for the shorter underneath routes to be more successful in this. This could lead to more Kyler Murray rushing attempts as well as he gets flushed out of the pocket. But Rondale Moore, very good underneath elite, like bubble screen specialist. If they're having troubles getting some protection there, they might see a few more attempts there. You might see a few more dump offs to Chase Edmonds, and I think it's those two kind of weak for them to shine. They are probably the most explosive people on the team, with DeAndre Hopkins and AJ Green kind of nearing the end stages of their career. They're not as explosive as they used to be, so keep that in mind. On the Cleveland side, we have number 29 offensive pass protection. Well, that's pretty bad. Arizona is actually top 10. They are number 9 in the pass rush. Obviously, if you think Arizona is going to be ahead in this game, Arizona's defense could be in play here. They should be able to get after Baker in the situations in which he's going to be passing. It seems like they have a pretty high adjusted sack rate, and Cleveland's been pretty bad at offensive pass protection. Fortunately for Cleveland, they're number 2 in offensive run blocking, and that's what they like to do. Arizona, number 25 in the adjusted line yards against the rush. So this is a green-red matchup, folks. Number 2 offensive run blocking for Cleveland against number 25 defensive adjusted line yards against the rush for Arizona. Expect another Chubb week. Expect another Hunt week. I think both of them are play. Chubb obviously gets the rushing work. Hunt, though, is the thorn in his side. He gets not only like goal line work, he gets red zone work, he gets the passing work. Especially if Arizona is going to be getting after Cleveland in those situations, I think Hunt's going to get some dump-offs. So you could see him having 3 to 5 targets or more in this particular game. David Njoku had the monster week last week. I think the tight ends are in play here as well if they're getting after Baker Mayfield. Those are the shorter targets that you're interested in when the quarterback's getting after and he's not necessarily mobile. You're looking at the running backs and the tight ends getting those shorter dump-off passes. On the Arizona side, like I said, you could also look at their defense if you think they're going to be up in this game. But, it's kind of more of an underground thing. I don't think a lot of people are going to be having Arizona defense. So, number 5, Los Angeles Rams at the New York Giants. That is our number 5 on the slate. It's just a half point less than the Arizona game there. So we have Los Angeles Rams at New York Giants, 49-point total. Los Angeles Rams are 9.5-point road favorites here against the Giants. They are the second highest team implied total on the slate at 29.25 there. So we have the Rams on offense. They are number 1 offensive pass protection. The New York Giants, number 30 in the pass rush defense. So we have a number 1 versus a number 30. That's almost as big as a gap as you can have on this, number 1 versus number 32, obviously being the best. So expect the Rams to be able to move the ball at will through the air. Now let's look at the run blocking. Number 8 run blocking for the Rams. Pretty good, top 10, right? That's a great matchup. New York Giants are actually number 32, so they're the worst in the league in the adjusted line yards against the run. The Rams, fire them up in every one of your redraft leagues. As far as DFS goes, I don't think they're going to have any issues moving the ball whatsoever on offense. They might score well over those 30 points that Vegas is saying that they expect him to score, 29 points that they expect him to score here. So expect the Rams to have an explosion on offense. I like Stafford in this matchup. Obviously, Kupp and Woods are in play. Higbee is in play. We have Darrell Henderson in play. You got a lot of opportunities here if you want a cheaper dart throw tight end from this particular matchup just to get into the Rams, maybe as a one-off. So if you're not correlating it with any of the Giants players, looking at a Van Jefferson as a cheap wide receiver option this week, he might not be too bad, especially if they're blowing out the Giants. He's probably going to be out there more, and then they might be more inclined to rest Kupp and more inclined to rest Woods and get some of their backup guys out there like Deshaun Jackson, Van Jefferson, those types of guys. As far as running the ball, this could be a Henderson week too. We do see McVay not minding to pound the rock on the rushing side there. And they should be capable against that Giants defense, which is pretty terrible. With that, let's transition to the Giants team. They're number 9 in offensive pass protection, which is pretty good, against the Rams, which is number 12. A slight favor in the Giants there for the offensive pass protection, but in general, it's pretty much a wash. The big significant thing here is lots of injuries for New York Giants. They're going to be out Saquon Barkley for sure. He's out this week. Daniel Jones has a concussion, unlikely to play, but possible that he plays. If he does, this is a little bit more interesting. If he doesn't, Mike Glennon's in there, and the Rams defense probably becomes a play that you definitely want in redraft. I don't know if you want to spend up on FanDuel for the Rams. I'm sure they're probably the most expensive on the slate, but they are in play over there on FanDuel, with the pricing being what it is there. So that's offensive pass protection for the Giants. They're going to be passing the ball. Kadarius Toney, I don't know what's going on there. He had an injury, and he got ejected from this last game, so I don't know what's going to happen in the next one. Galladay's out. He's on IR. Slayton hasn't played for a few weeks. We haven't seen Sterling Shepard play for a few weeks. I don't know if they're going to. I don't know who's honestly on that squad after those 4. It's just going to be scrap heaps there, which is another reason why the Rams would be a defensive play, especially with Mike Glennon throwing the ball. The offensive run blocking is even worse, so they're number 31 in offensive run blocking. The Rams are number 12 in the defensive adjusted line yards against the run. Don't expect the Giants to be able to run the ball. So all those guys that picked up Devontae Booker for Mula Fab, you're not even going to play him this week, so why did you spend all that fab on him? And Barkley's probably going to be back in a few. Just kind of wasted your fab there on getting the waiver wire darling, right? So it's kind of a waste of money for those who spent the fab on there. But that's kind of an interesting game there. That is number 5 on the slate, so that puts us at 50% of the way done here. We're going to go to number 6 game on the slate, which I do like. It's Cincinnati at Detroit, which is the 6th highest game total at 47.5 there. And we have Cincinnati as 3.5-point road favorites here. So this is Cincinnati at Detroit. On Cincinnati's offensive side, their pass protection's number 27 in the league. Detroit's number 6 at generating a pass rush on defense. They've been that way this entire season, so it doesn't seem like anything is necessarily changing there. They're getting after the quarterback and able to sack him. I don't think it's going to be that much different against Cincinnati, especially with their pass protection being pretty poor. Detroit might be one of those low-end sneaky defenses that you can get quite a few sacks on, especially if Mixon's still kind of banged up and they don't want to run as much. Cincinnati's definitely running more than they did last year, but it's kind of ramping more up towards the pass game. So Detroit's defense could be in play there with that pass rush. Either way, Cincinnati 27 versus number 6 for Detroit. I would expect Cincinnati's pass game to be more dink and dunk. So that could be dump offs to Mixon. That could be dump offs to Samaje Perine. That could be dump offs to Chris Evans. Any of those three might be getting dump offs. It could be CJ Uzama underneath or Drew Sample underneath. But Tyler Boyd's probably the biggest beneficiary of any dink and dunk type of game plan here on offense or necessity. And getting the ball out quick. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, obviously studs there. They can score a touchdown pretty much any week. I would expect Chase to be more of the elite type route runner, able to get open underneath and intermediate, and getting some more of that dink and dunk where T. Higgins seems to be more of an intermediate guy. We did see last year he was able to run some of these shorter and intermediate routes, but with Chase there, I think he gathers more of that role where Higgins is more of the intermediate and deep, like, clasher guy that is just a bigger body and doing that. And Detroit's number 22 on the adjusted line yards on defense against the rush. Cincinnati's actually number 9 in offensive run blocking. This is a huge favor in Cincinnati's run game. And as I had said before, we saw Cincinnati run the ball a lot more this year than they did last year. If Mixon's fully healthy, I expect Mixon to have a monster game. Even with this pass protection being poor in Cincinnati, he could see more targets than usual. So if Mixon's workload isn't going to be like maintained or watched in this particular matchup, he might be a smash play in this particular matchup. I do like his chances if he is healthy. Just keep that in mind. If he doesn't play and Samaje Perine is in there, he is also an excellent play in this particular matchup. Now we get to the Detroit side. They are the underdogs by 3.5. Their offensive pass protection, number 17, Cincinnati, number 15. That's kind of a wash. You would expect the people that normally get the points there to get them. Detroit might find themselves with a decent amount of pass time. So we just heard Goff come out and say he wants more Amon-Ra St. Brown, offensive focus. So he could have one of those squeaky wheel gets the grease type of week. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, watch him for tournaments. I don't think he's going to be super highly rostered. And then obviously Hawkinson and Swift are the ones that get the vast majority of the targets over there, and they're in play pretty much every week just because of Detroit's projected game scripts every single week. They're unlikely to be blowing people out. So Hawkinson and Swift are likely going to be getting massive target volume the entire year. On the run blocking side on the offense for Detroit, they're number 12, which isn't too bad, middle of the road, a little bit above average there, just outside the top 10. But Cincinnati, number 4 in the adjusted line yards against the rush. Cincinnati's defense has been stepping it up this year. We saw middle of the road pass rush. Now they're top 5 actually in the adjusted line yards against the run. I don't expect Jamal Williams or Swift to have very efficient weeks on the ground. That would be more through the air, as we saw the pass protection there be more of a wash. So watch out for that particular game, which is Cincinnati at Detroit. They are the 6th highest on the slate this week. Number 7 is Minnesota at Carolina. And this one was a little interesting. Minnesota are 1-point underdogs actually on Tuesday when I first made this. Now they're 2-point road favorites against Carolina. And the game total, I think, went down 2 points. They used to be higher. It went down 2 points. And I think that was based off of the Christian McCaffrey news. So once it came out that he's 50-50 to play and now he did not practice, I don't think this Thursday, I think that line is getting bet down. If Christian McCaffrey's in there, that offense just obviously isn't as good with Chuba Hubbard. Less potential points to be scored there. I think that's why that's being bet down. Now we see Minnesota, a 3-point swing on the favorites there. So they went from being 1-point underdogs to 2-point favorites. And let's start on that Minnesota side on offense. Offensive pass protection, number 3. That's very good. Top 3, obviously. But then we have Carolina, number 1 on the pass rush defense. They do get after the quarterback. That's going to lead to shorter targets for Minnesota. That's Justin Jefferson territory. That is Tyler Conklin territory. That is running back dump-off territory. So keep that in mind. We've seen Thielen kind of fizzle out here the last few weeks, not garnering a ton of targets. He can get open underneath, but more of that red zone threat that you want. He's just not really the target monster that he used to be, especially with Justin Jefferson there. On the offensive run blocking, Minnesota's actually 26th this year. It's kind of a reverse from last year. Their offensive line was very bad in the pass protection and awesome. Is always like top 3 in the offensive run blocking. Now they're top 3 in offensive pass protection and one of the worst ones in offensive run blocking. So they're number 26 offensive run blocking. Carolina number 11 on the adjusted line yards against the rush. Don't expect Minnesota to be able to move the ball super efficiently on the ground against Carolina. Carolina does have a good defense. Expect them to move the ball through the air more efficiently than on the ground. Again, Justin Jefferson week, maybe a Tyler Conklin type of week. And the running backs, if they're going to score points, it's going to be via the pass attack. Although if Dalvin Cook is kind of limited in practice and ends up playing this week, I don't like either of those running backs in this particular matchup. I think they're just going to eat into each other, and they're going to kind of ease Dalvin Cook into it, even though when it seems like he's in there, he just gets a massive workload. But that's the Minnesota side on offense. Carolina side, we have them number 24 in the offensive pass protection against Minnesota's number 3 defensive pass rush. If Minnesota is projecting to be ahead in this could be a nice Minnesota defense week where they're getting after Carolina, generating some turnovers, generating some sacks, especially if they're ahead. Watch out for that. But I don't expect Carolina to have a lot of time, so this could be another Chuba Hubbard dump-off week. I said to start him last week. He had a pretty solid week last week in fantasy. Not necessarily GPP winning week, but you were certainly glad you started them in redraft. And their run blocking is number 24, but Minnesota is number 29 in the adjusted line yards against the defense. So they should find themselves moving the ball more efficiently on the ground attack than they're used to as well. So Carolina may be able to run the ball a little bit better than they used to. It could be another Chuba Hubbard week, like I said. He's going to be a little bit more efficient on the ground than he's used to. And if Minnesota's getting after the quarterback, expect him to get a lot of dump-offs. You could also do the same for DJ Moore on underneath passes. And I think we saw Robbie Anderson with a decent target volume in the last 2 weeks. So keep that in mind on the Carolina side. I don't think Christian McCaffrey is going to play. So Chuba Hubbard is probably the main target I'm going to do here from Carolina. I don't know if I'm necessarily going to game stack on here, but I might get a Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore, or get Chuba Hubbard in there with Justin Jefferson or something like that as a one-off kind of correlated game stack there. So keep that in mind. That is the 7th highest total. Then we come to 2 games here that are tied for 8th before the final one, which is the 10th is Seattle at Pittsburgh. So tied for 8th is Green Bay at Chicago at a 44-point total. If I didn't say so, that Minnesota at Carolina is 46-point total. Green Bay at Chicago, though, is a 44-point total. Green Bay are 5-point road favorites here against Chicago, and that's where we'll start with Green Bay. Offensive pass protection, number 16. Chicago, number 2 in the pass rush on defense. They are getting after the quarterback. I don't expect Aaron Rodgers to have a ton of time back there. Probably going to lead to more underneath stuff. Again, that's always the running backs. You could look at the tight ends or Randall Cobb. Devontae Adams does run plenty of slot routes and underneath things. He's obviously always in play every single week. I just don't see the upside necessarily if there's not a ton of pass time for Rodgers in this particular matchup. On the run blocking side, though, we have Green Bay number 15, pretty much middle of the road, just like their offensive pass protection. But Chicago's number 24 in the adjusted line yards on defense. It's not a huge mismatch, but that's definitely a favor in the Green Bay run game. I expect Aaron Jones, actually, with that Chicago defense getting after Aaron Rodgers and with this run blocking the way it is, I expect Aaron Jones to have a pretty solid week this week, getting dump-offs and being pretty efficient in the run game. I know A.J. Dillon is eating into a lot of his work here and capping his upside to an extent, but we always had that with Jamal Williams. Aaron Jones, we already saw week 2 smash with 4 touchdowns or whatever it was. He absolutely dominated, won people tournaments for sure already this week or already this year. We could see the same this week as well. On the Chicago side, We look at their offensive pass protection, number 32. A lot of that was the Cleveland game where they gave up 9.5 sacks, but they are really bad, and Justin Fields isn't helping anything there. Green Bay is number 17 against the pass rush. Not very good necessarily, but they've lost a lot of talent there on defense due to injuries, so it could be a little interesting there on the pass attack for Chicago. I don't expect Green Bay to necessarily get after Chicago, but they're not very good at offensive pass protection regardless. I just don't see the Chicago offense moving the ball very well through the air. The run blocking on offense for Chicago is number 13 against Green Bay, number 27. I do like that, and we just saw Damian Williams from Chicago get the COVID positive test today, so that pretty much guarantees that he will not play on Sunday. It's going to be the Khalil Herbert show, especially if Chicago's getting a lot of heat on the quarterback. Expect Herbert to actually have a pretty solid week this week with getting some dump-offs from Justin Fields and then having a pretty efficient game on the ground against this Green Bay defense. I think Herbert's pretty much the only guy from Chicago that you're going to want to play in this particular matchup. The 44-point total wants me to stay off of this particular game in general, but Green Bay should have Aaron Jones play this week, and Chicago would be more like the Khalil Herbert side, and that's kind of it for this tied for 8th highest game total at number with the 44-point game total there. The other one with the 44-point over-under is Las Vegas at Denver. And for those of you on YouTube, this is game 11. As you see here, we have a 44-point game total in Denver, 3.5-point home favorites. So we'll start with that Las Vegas Raiders team on offense. Number 21 offensive pass protection versus Denver's number 10 pass rush. Not very good. 21 for Las Vegas on the pass protection. Denver top 10. Expect them to be getting after the quarterback. Expect Derek Carr not to have a lot of time. It's going to lead to probably more underneath stuff. So Kenyon Drake could possibly be getting a ton of targets in this particular game. Josh Jacobs possibly. But more than likely, it's going to be a Darren Waller week for the Vegas Raiders. I don't expect them to be necessarily moving the ball very well, though, because we see the offensive run blocking at number 28 versus Denver's number 8 on the adjusted line yards defense. Don't expect Las Vegas to be able to move the ball very well on the ground. They just haven't done that all year, and Denver is pretty good against that. Expect them to be more efficient moving it through the air, which analytically makes sense anyway, but with the adjusted line play report, it's just less of a mismatch there. As far as this is concerned, it's a low game total. I'm pretty much only looking or interested in Waller in this particular matchup. On the Denver side, we see the offensive pass protection at number 25, Vegas number 21 at the defensive pass rush. Essentially a wash. I'd expect Denver basically to target Sutton and Tim Patrick there on the offensive side. Maybe Fant if you want to go that route, but it should just be the usual scores on the pass protection there with the 25-21 matchup. On the run blocking side, we have Denver at number 21, Vegas at 15. Denver 21 on the run blocking on offense, Vegas number 15 on the defensive side. Don't expect Denver to be super efficient on the ground, so Javonte Williams probably not in play. Melvin Gordon probably not in play a ton. If you think Vegas is going to be able to get after the quarterback, maybe they're going to have a few more dump-off catches, but those running backs kind of eat into each other. Not a super interesting game for me, as I said. I'm only interested in Waller on the Vegas side. On the Denver side, maybe Cortland Sutton, and that's about it. If you want to do a dart throw on Tim Patrick, you're probably fine doing that as well. Again, that is tied for 8th in the second one. So we've gone through 9. We're 90% of the way done here. Last one is Seattle at Pittsburgh. If maybe you want to lay down for this or get a puke bucket or something, Seattle at Pittsburgh. It's actually been bet up from where it started at a 43-point total or a 42-point total. It's now 43.5. We have Pittsburgh as 5-point home favorites, which makes sense with Russell Wilson out of there. So Seattle side, they are the away team, 26 in offensive pass protection, but Pittsburgh number 23 at generating a pass rush against the quarterback. kind of a wash there, so you'd expect Seattle, the normal point scorers. You're probably only interested in Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf in this particular matchup anyway. Chris Carson coming in with a neck injury. You can't really trust that. Even in redraft leagues, it's going to be a little awkward to try and start him with knowing that. And as far as the adjusted line play is concerned, offensive run blocking for Seattle, number 16, so middle of the road, but Pittsburgh, number 9 on the adjusted line yards against the rush. So it's a little bit of a mismatch in Pittsburgh's favor on the running side. So kind of avoiding that Seattle run game, looking more for the pass game there. And it's essentially Lockett and DK Metcalf are the only Seattle people I'm interested in playing. On the Pittsburgh side, on offensive pass protection, we have number 11 versus Seattle, number 25. That's a pretty solid favor for Pittsburgh there. I expect them to have more time than they're used to. With the injury to Juju Smith-Schuster, this could be the Claypool week and the Deontay Johnson week. I expect them to move the ball through the air to those two. They could be in line both for like 12 to 15 targets. Obviously, Najee Harris eats into some of their target. But the run blocking on offense for Pittsburgh's number 30, Seattle number 20. Definitely a favor in Seattle, but Pittsburgh might find the run blocking a little bit easier than they're used to against the Seattle defense, considering they are number 20. So Harris, maybe he'll be a bit more efficient on the ground, but don't expect a monster game considering their offensive run blocking is number 30. I'd be more inclined to do a Claypool or a Deontay Johnson in this particular matchup. And if you're going to do that, running it back with DK Metcalf or Lockett. I don't think there's going to be very many people playing guys from this particular matchup because it's a 43.5 point total. It's the lowest on the slate. But oddly enough, I feel pretty comfortable with the target consolidation and Pittsburgh being basically 3 people, including Najee Harris. So Deontay Johnson and Claypool. Claypool, I believe, has the higher upside. Johnson, more safe. Cash lineup for Johnson if that's the route you want to go in a low game total. I don't know. Claypool would be more the GPP lineup, especially with nobody on this, and then running back with Lockett and DK Metcalf. But anyway, folks, that's going to do it for this Week 6 episode of the Adjusted Line Play Report. Hopefully you garnered some information from this. We are down 4 games for this particular slate compared to what we're used to because of the London game and the 4 teams that are on bye. So we're missing out on 3 potential matchups there that we would have in here like we did the previous 5 weeks. But with that being said, this is going to conclude the episode. As I said, if you're listening on Podbean, head over to YouTube, give it a subscribe to the channel over there. We don't do just DFS, but you can watch the DFS show. And if you don't want to listen to what the numbers are, you can see what the actual adjusted line numbers are for each particular team and each particular line metric that we're looking at here. If you're watching on YouTube, certainly go over to Podbean, type in Zilla Fantasy Elite on Podbean, follow there and get the audio. So if you're more of an audiophile and you don't want to watch this on YouTube, which is understandable, I also would prefer to listen to a DFS show than watch one on YouTube. Go to Podbean, go over there, hit the follow button on Zilla Fantasy Elite, and when the episodes come out, so I'm recording this Thursday night. Thursday Night Football is going on at the moment. Actually, let's see where we're at here. Touchdown, Jalen Hurts, 6 yards. We got an update there, but Thursday night, it's going to be released Friday morning, so that's going to be for that. The socials, Zilla Fantasy Elite on YouTube. Give it a subscribe. Zilla Fantasy over at Twitter, and Toddzilla1337 for my personal account on Twitter. I do a lot of tweeting for DFS and Dynasty and football in general on Twitter, so that's at Toddzilla1337. At Zilla Fantasy on Twitter, and Zilla Fantasy Elite over on YouTube and Podbean. So keep that in mind. Thanks for the listen, folks. Hopefully we can win some money together. Certainly leave a comment either on Podbean or this YouTube channel if you win some money, or contact me over on Twitter and let me know what you won and how I helped you do that. I appreciate the listen and the watch, folks. Thanks. Let's go win some money together. Bye.